So welcome, Perennial Pride listeners. Thanks, as always, for joining and listening. I really appreciate you joining me and hopefully getting some good education around this. So I always try to bring on unique guests for different perspectives and get real life experiences in here to give you some insight on what you might want to think about to, maximize your wealth and give you more control and freedom of your life. So today I'm honored to have a guest, Marlene Amata. She's the firm owner of Amata Accounting, Inc. And, got to know Marlene over time and really appreciate the way she thinks about business and life. And in the area of taxes, it could be one of those dry areas that people don't like to talk to people, even finance people don't like to talk about it sometimes. But Marlene brings a different perspective. So, Marlene, thanks for joining me today and thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to see where we're going to go with this conversation and just the things that we want to share to your viewers.
Yeah. Before we get going on any sort of specific topics, I mean, you've been in this industry in tax accounting for 2, 3 decades. Share a little bit your experience going through this industry and how it's kind of helped you evolve your business and your practice.
Yeah, just kind of a fun fact for everybody. I actually hated accounting. And so I had friends that I grew up with that we were all in college together and they were actually studying for accounting degree. And I told them that would be one of the last things I would ever want to do on the planet. But I believe that what you are innately given at birth in terms of your talents or abilities that will eventually develop over time. So as much as I was denying that I can do accounting or that I would enjoy it, that ended up being a 30-year career. One of the impetus for me actually getting into the accounting field was the entertainment industry. If you told me, oh, Marlene, there's a job opening at a manufacturing plant, not interested. Stuff like that, or like in the big firms, still not interested. But just the fact that there was like a Hollywood entertainment portion of it that made accounting exciting, I was all in. And I think now if we flash forward to 2025, tax planning is exciting because you're actually having the opportunity to really work with your clients, get to know them better, get to understand their situation better, and help people. And I think that's what makes it really rewarding. And so I've just seen myself go from, like they call it the bean counter, right? Where you do accounting and you just kind of sit at your desk and you don't talk to anybody and you're in front of your computer and you just kind of do your thing, to really evolving into a completely different person who's now having the opportunity to work for my own company and really go out there, meet people, and really help them, and not just be reactive to what's happening with them, but being proactive in the front end. So I'm excited. It's been an interesting journey, and I think it's going to continue to be interesting. And I'm looking forward to just all the other tax planning things that are out there that I haven't heard of, that I want to learn about and then share with my clients.
And it's an interesting perspective, right? Because to your point, it could be a very dry topic. And obviously, it's one component of a bigger picture of, people trying to sort of get a hold of their financial lives. Taxes, unfortunately, the more successful you are, the worse it gets type of situation. It's like a good and bad sort of thing. You almost forget how successful some people are because they start complaining about the taxes they're paying. But it is kind of taking the right perspective because both our industries, finances and the financial industry and tax industry evolve, right? And there's a lot of things that are complex about both sides of it and then cause people to sort of evolve and change or maybe change their focus, right? So for a lot of folks that I've come across in the accounting space, most people think of it as like tax preparation, compliance, right? But like you said, backwards thinking, you're more progressive. That's why when we started chatting originally, it was refreshing to hear that you're saying, how can I do more for my clients broadly, not even just tax planning, but like broader sort of planning, right? In their lives, in their businesses, et cetera. It wasn't just taxes. So how did that when did you realize that was where this was all going?
As I get to know my clients more, I get more involved in their personal lives that don't touch taxes. So one client, oh no, she's going through a divorce and she's asking me, do you have a referral for a divorce attorney? There's another one says, oh man, my kids are soon going to college. What options do I have? So then that's where, you and I and the whole VFO comes in, because it's like there are so many other issues that our clients are having. And it's nice to be able to confidently say, hey, you know what? I think we can help you in that area. And so I think that's really what propelled me into that, is just my clients being really transparent with me over the years, getting to know me and realizing that I'm more than an accountant. I'm also their friend. They could come to me and ask, hey, I need some help. Do you know anybody who can?
Yeah. No, and I think again that's probably just a natural, innate sort of ability you have to connect with people, and you genuinely care about them, right? It's the tax code for what it is. It's set that aside, but how you're helping them, to your point, directly is that. But obviously you're there to help them more broadly, and you wanted to provide more, and that's the same lens that I took going into it. Certainly in the financial world, there's so many ways to help, just like whether it's in taxes or insurance, wouldn't you name it. But you're faced with a world that everything's sort of connected and can impact things in a way. And when you kind of isolate them and do siloed work, there's a possibility that the outcomes for people are not as great as they could be, right? And I think we all sort of recognize that. So you touched on it, and maybe let's talk about that for a moment. The VFO or virtual family office, it's starting to become more well known throughout the industry. And I think there's an evolution to this. And, for anyone who's maybe come across this, the first time I ever heard about it was related to the Rockefeller family and some of the history behind that. And, at a simple level, it's like, listen, they're such a big family with a lot of businesses and wealth that they could hire a team of experts across attorneys to tax experts to insurance to investments to basically run the show for them, right? Their finances, and keep them in order and give them the consultation they needed to amass wealth and keep it growing for generations and generations. Well, I don't know about you, Marlene. I don't have that kind of money to build my own family office. But this virtual family office is kind of cool because it can simulate that, and it can create a environment where there's a more sort of collective, sort of more comprehensive sort of group that can help with clients and remove some of the silos.
Yeah, just recently one of my clients reached out, and him and his wife are in the tech world, and they're heavily invested in one certain stock, and just randomly he sent me an email and said, hey Marlene, I'm kind of entertaining the idea of diversifying our portfolio. We have too much in one stock. What do you think? And what's nice when you have a virtual family office is you're no longer alone. So instead of Marlene Amata answering the question all by myself, I actually have resources, others that are more knowledgeable than myself, that I could bring to the table and say, hey, my client is struggling with this. Can you help me? And you don't get one, you don't get two, you don't get three. I probably have 4 people that responded to me to say, hey, here are some options for your client. And when I let my client know that, they were so appreciative that I'm a resource, but that because I'm a resource, they can continue to trust me with other things in their life that are going on, not just their stock position. So it's great. I mean, it's just wonderful to have people and not to be alone in your industry.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things where, we pride ourselves on being experts, and we want to know, we want to be right and help people as much as possible. But sometimes, to your point, we sometimes have to, and you don't have this, but like, some people do have an ego that kind of can get in the way. I need to be the one coming to rescue people or help people versus to do the best by people. Sometimes I have to rely on others or be humble enough to know I don't know the answer to it, and bring in others that may have seen it or experienced or have knowledge and networks that can be very helpful for people. And I think that's what has happened in a lot of cases where we try to become that expert for everything, but we just can't know it all. And we can kind of release that and work as a team.
I feel like collaboration is the new gold in the business world. Not that it wasn't before, but I think that now in 2025, people are really waking up to the idea that we're not necessarily competitors. We can partner together, we can collaborate with one another, we can share information. for the benefit of all of our clients, right? So that's
I
kind of
know.
where
It's a tricky one. Yeah, and I don't know how it is within the accounting profession and how collaborative like tax professionals are, but certainly in the financial world, it can be fairly cutthroat, right? It's trying to sort of you beat the competition. And listen, I understand that broadly speaking, you know, but I think there's more ways when you put the client in the front and try to think about them, the competition part almost can slide away because it just becomes a different focus. But anyway, that's a different perspective on it. And that's one I think is much healthier and much more abundant thinking is, I think, the wave of the future for these industries because by themselves, they can only do so much, right? And it may not be as beneficial for clients. So given that nature, I mean, I don't know, you joke, I don't know what when they stack up the tax code of how high, if you took all the pages and print them out, like how high it is. And, when you look at all the finance stuff, like the level of complexity in this world today is just crazy, right? And so to me, that's one of the biggest things why these sort of collaborative environments or family offices or groups are really so key to be able to harness that. Like, what else do you see that maybe is helping to drive the need for kind of this more different approach to serving clients, like in the financial world and tax world?
for example, the entertainment industry, when you get a celebrity client, they kind of go into something that sounds like a virtual family office. They have like a team. So a successful business owner, a successful actor, whoever they are, obviously they don't know anything about finances or taxes. So they're leaning in on professionals, right? So they'll have their entertainment lawyer, their accountant, their financial advisor, their banker, their agent, right? And we all know each other, but we don't necessarily collaborate. And that's where the missing piece is. So I've watched over the years where it's like, oh, didn't I send you his contract? Oh, no, I didn't know he was going to make $5 million for this move. I didn't factor that into my tax plan. Thank you for telling me now at September 14th when we have to file, like tomorrow. Or some strange thing like that.
Yeah.
So it was not collaborative. And honestly, now in 2025, it's still not any better. So it's nice to see people actually communicating on behalf of a mutual client for their best interest. And that way, it's fully transparent. Everybody knows what's going on. There aren't any surprises. So as a business owner, you can trust that you're being well taken care of and people are talking to one another and it goes a lot smoother than having your accountant find out, that you have this huge tax liability at the end of the year that you didn't know about.
Yeah, and that's such a great sort of example because, one is the sort of the group of experts and advisors or whatever we want to call them talking together is like so rare. And then the second part in the world of our lives, which people could argue we're in, which I call it was like we're in a hurried environment for a hurried life. Like everything's rushed, right? We're so fast paced, especially I'm on the East Coast or West Coast. Like who could ever stop to actually plan for these things and do it properly, right? With the right people and take the time as opposed to rushed. And that's why I think that's why this is a cool sort of concept to be able to say, to plan properly, you got to slow down and get the right people involved to do it right. For people who recognize that, it could be a massive benefit for like to be able to handle a case like that. Like you knew that was coming. That's not a 2-second conversation or solution because it could have a lot of different impacts now and in the future. You got to weigh your options with it and get the right people involved. It's easy to see in hindsight, but you almost need to show that to people to say this is what could happen and it could cost people millions of dollars, right? Literally, if you don't do it. So, again, in the world of finance, in the VFO that we're operating in, it's kind of concentrated in 5 different buckets. We're not going to go deep into all of them, but, just to hit on, we talked obviously about taxes and even Marlene, you have such expertise in that space, but no one in their right mind could ever know all the tax code, right? Just like I am in the finance world, I don't know everything about life insurance and investments out there. I can't know everything about them, right? It's impossible. And so, we have access to, other advanced tax planning sort of solutions and strategies and resources for business and personal. We have wealth management, obviously that can be broad too, around, investments, but it then can migrate to things like real estate and other things. Legal, of course, there's a lot of things legal in our world that we need help with, right? That's just another complicated area that even floats into the tax base. Again, sort of that's why it's good to have both. And risk mitigation, unfortunately, we have a lot of risks that are out there, both personally and business wise. And then I think the biggest one outside of tax advisory and support is also missing too in a lot of cases is business advisory, helping the millions and millions of, we talked about solopreneurs or even small business owners, like, maximize, to me, their biggest asset, their business, right? How to help them grow and exit and all those fun things around it. That is is a comprehensive view of a VFO with different types of experts in them. So that's just a kind of a broad stroke. Marlene, for you, like, when we think about tax, and some of these things are maybe obvious to some, but what are some of the things around the tax space that you typically see people are missing, misunderstand, that people using a VFO could benefit from, right? Tax professional.
So, for example, entity optimization. Let's just say that you're a Schedule C content creator. Well, your YouTube channel just blew up, and now you make, instead of making, $20,000 a year at Starbucks, now with your content creation, you make $200,000. No taxes withheld though, because you're an independent contractor. You are now swimming in a lane that you have absolutely no idea. So maybe you do have an accountant, and the accountant says, hey, you know what? It'd probably be better if you were an S Corp. Sure. Will I save on taxes? Yeah, absolutely. You save on self-employment tax. Great. Okay, you do the whole rigmarole. And no one's actually told you what an S Corp is, how it's actually run, what the rules are for compensation. So there's so many people out there where they've given partial advice. And with a VFO, you're getting the other missing pieces. Because, I mean, like, I'm just going to admit it from my industry. Accountants are like this. I don't have time. I've got 1,000 clients on my roster. I'm going to just tell you, hey, you should be an S Corp to save on self-employment tax. Let's go. And that's about it. And unfortunately, clients then lose because then they haven't met any of the real requirements. They haven't done the kind of wages they're supposed to. And then if they're in an audit, well, you can just imagine what's going to happen to them. So with the VFO, with having that kind of support, you'll have somebody that will walk you through, like, for example, advanced tax planning strategies. They're not going to just tell you and go bye. They're going to tell you and then help walk you through it. So that's where we meet the need, because a lot of firms in the accounting space will not do that for their clients.
Probably more of a sort of a transaction type base approach. I see a lot of similarities where you have, you doctors who know well, and they do care. They just don't have the time to sit down and explain and really go deeper with people. And unfortunately, I think patients and in your example, clients lose in that case because it's fast. It's just like the pressures around and the realities of life make it impossible to give the depth of advice and sort of thought around things. And they may not even have the access to other resources that help them see it broader, right? To come up with better solutions. And so it's an unfortunate reality. That's why I think, for folks who are looking for more deeper, more sort of robust sort of solution sets around things, around what's happening in their financial life, especially taxes, their business, the VFO can be hugely beneficial. I always like to run it by somebody just to give different perspectives around it. I always love that because everyone has a different experience on even the same event, right? That idea, like something happens, people are going to take it a different way just because they have a unique experience. So I know, given your support in the entertainment space and such, I mean, you deal with a lot of business owners, right? And some small business owners, solopreneurs and such. Like, what are some of the areas that maybe for that type of person that, some of the big risks that maybe they're just completely unaware of, haven't thought too deeply about, that they ought to really think about to better, protect themselves and their families and certainly their business.
Yeah, they're so excited about building their business. So their focus is on doing just that, building the business. So they're definitely looking forward, but they're not looking forward enough. So they're doing the do to grow their business, but then they don't actually stop and think about, okay, wow, last year I made 100,000. This year I'm making 500,000, and next year I'm anticipating making 5 million. Growth is great, but then when you don't have any other plan for what happens with your company if, I don't know, you had an accident, you get terminally ill and you pass away, have you had those deeper thoughts about what are you going to do with your business? Does it really have value? That what's your family going to do? Could they sell it? Could they sell your book of clients? Is there even a game plan for, you know, replacing you? You're disabled or pass away. I want to say 10 out of 10 business owners would probably say, never crossed my mind, because they're just thinking about, I just want to grow my business. I want it to be successful. I want to retire at 55 or whatever goal they have, or I want to make $10 million. But then they don't actually think about, well, your company is really you, but what are you doing to protect what you've built should something happen to you? So I think that's one area that I think every single business owner should think about, no matter how small. Even for me, my husband looks at me and goes, you need a plan. Because if you were disabled or whatever, I don't know how your company runs, Marlene. I need like a roadmap of how you do everything. So that's an area that I would emphasize to every single one. They need to focus on that.
Yeah, it's such a big thing. And to your point, there's, especially for people who maybe come from working a job to becoming a solopreneur, which a lot of people are doing these days. And it is a different mindset shift around it, because when you're working in a job and maybe you have some life insurance, but like they could just replace you in that job, right? The business will hopefully still continue to exist, but now you're one and the same in a self-employed situation, and you may not have any succession plan to speak of other than, like you said, a spouse that has no idea how this operates. So it's pretty much going to die, likely, and lose a lot of value if you try to sell it, right? If you haven't set that up. So it is really key. And I just experienced it even in my own world where that happened. A friend who was a business owner and just had some health issues and now may never be able to see in the future. So he has to basically close shop and he can't sell his business, and he's done. And he's just liquidating assets within a matter of months. And so it's one of those things that, listen, I think that whole stoic world that says, if you know something like this can happen, it's really irresponsible not to plan for it, especially when you have people in the world that depend on you and your family, that if you know it could happen, you should at least do something about it, right? And I take that to heart because, I think people are unprepared and can have devastating impacts on people's wealth. That's a shame, especially if you built such a tremendous business. So it's just one of those areas that not the sexiest things like tax planning, but could be just as impactful for sure. So when we think about the VFO, I know, we kind of give it a little broad strokes of it, where it can help. I mean, obviously it's a good thing because, having a single point of contact is good group. And that's kind of how we're positioning. Like we can be the eyes and ears for you and then bring in the right resources instead of you trying to hunt the world, trying to find the right types of people, and could save, even though it might have some costs to it, through tax planning or other efficient ways protecting wealth. I mean, I think it could be a massive benefit financially to be able to spend the money to get the right advice in place to protect and grow your wealth, right? And I think it could be. So, Marlene, from you, like, from people who are just listening to this to maybe like still trying to get their head around what this VFO, is there one or two big things you would love for them kind of just to take away from it based on kind of what you see and experience in this VFO model?
I remember the phrase, it takes a village. And I truly believe this, that for successful business owners, you really are successful dependent on your team. And it doesn't have to always be your internal team that works for you or works with you, but it's also your external team. It's the people around you. It's the professionals that you're bringing into your inner circle to help you make really good choices. I mean, like you said, like, I don't know all the taxes. You don't know all the financial areas that you need to know. I mean, nobody knows everything. So even if you tried everything and chat GPT'd your way through life, at some point you're going to realize that it's a good thing for you to rely on other people to give you really good advice. Should the advice be free? I always say no. I believe in paying for the value of what you get. You know, I'd rather earn my Nike shoes than have somebody give me a pair of Nike shoes, right? Like, I paid for this. It's going to bring me value. I'm going to run with it. It's all good. So I just really encourage people to be open to bring people into your inner circle that will help you. I mean, if you try to do your taxes and you did it wrong, you could be facing a huge tax bill. And it's your fault because there's a gazillion accountants out there who could have helped you prepare your return correctly. Same thing in every single facet of your life. You could do it yourself, absolutely, but can it be done better by somebody else? And would that be of any value to you? And if it is, then it's worth it to pay somebody to say, hey, help me do it right. Help me to do it well. And then I think in the end of the day, it gives you peace of mind that you're not putting the burden of everything on yourself, you know, so that yes, you're a business owner. Yes, your success is based on a lot of the things that you've created, but it's the people around you that keep it going. That's kind of my advice too.
Yeah, and that's it. I think we're both proponents of we are the captains of our ship, right? We have to take responsibility for our business, our families, and the direction of where we go in our lives. But that doesn't mean you have to go it alone. And as you, I still remember the day I first heard it. It's like, if you want to go slow, go alone, right? And to me, that always resonated, even though I want to try to do everything myself. It's a slow road, but that's why having a team of trusted people to help you can speed things up, even if it might cost something, right? It's an investment in yourself, in your business, in your future. And so I would highly encourage people to consider that as they're thinking through this, and then empower themselves to get the right types of people around them, right? And it'll kind of lift you up, and the people around you also benefit. So it's really something that certainly inspires me personally as I get around other good people in different spheres of life, that those sort of impacts can reverberate for generations if you're around the right types of people. So, Marlene, I really appreciate you kind of joining me and sharing your perspectives. You know, you come with so much wisdom and care in what you do, and look forward to continuing our relationship and growth and helping as many people as we possibly can so they can be empowered to take over their own financial lives, right? With the right guides with them. So, any last party shots on your end?
Just to tell your listeners, take that really sage advice that if you go alone, go slow. Believe in the power of community and collaboration and team, and you'll see yourself jump leaps and bounds ahead in whatever you're doing. So that's my takeaway, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be on.
Awesome, Marlene. I appreciate you, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Perennial Pride podcast. Thanks for joining me on this episode today. I really am grateful for you as listeners to the Perennial Pride podcast. I hope you're getting some tremendous value out of it, and hopefully pushing you along your journey to financial freedom. You know, I put this podcast together really to help you get more educated around your finances so that you feel empowered to live the life that you really want. And if you like the content that you heard today or watched, then I would encourage you to go to my website, perennialpride.com. There's tons of other content there. And you can access my book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. You can buy it there on my website. It's a aggregation of a lot of great tips and tools I've learned to not only build my wealth in my accounts, but build wealth in my life and abundance and joy, and something that has a lot of my experiences in the journey that I've been on personally hopefully that can be also of value to you as you sort of move forward. So thanks again for being a Perennial Pride listener, and we'll see you on the next episode.